Thursday, March 6th. This is the virtual pre-bid conference for RFP. Let me change that right now. RFP 185542. This is for the Detroit Office of Information and Technology IT Asset Disposal RFP. My name is Jamila Watkins. I'm the buyer. I'm with the Office of Contracting and Procurement. And the next slide here, this is the agenda. So we're just going to do introductions. I've already introduced myself. Then I'll have the team from DoIT introduce themselves. I'm going to go over what the pre-bid conference call, entails, go over the RFP, project timeline, evaluation criteria, key response items, and then I will hand it over to the DoIT team, who's going to give you an overview and more in-depth details for the background and description of needs, and then they're going to open it up for questions and answers. So at this time, can we have the City of Detroit DoIT team to do introductions, please?
Okay, Gary.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Good morning. Brandon Sledge-Mellon, Director of Technology Services.
Thank you.
Robert Miller, the Director of Public Safety.
Mike Serrano, Manager for Public Safety Client Services.
Nick Clark, Client Services Division, Central City.
Is that everyone?
No, Terriana McCain from DoIT, part of the leadership team.
Thank you.
Terry Rockamore with Band Rock Firm, consultant with Connexus Geek.
Thank you. Okay, that if everyone from City of Detroit is introduced, we're good. So thank you for that. Let me just briefly go over the overview for the conference call. So this call is being recorded. Please state your name and the company or organization that you represent when you're unmuted once we open it up for questions and answers. All bidders are encouraged to ask questions. You may enter them into the chat at any time if you choose not to, speak them into the mic. All verbal responses to questions provided today are unofficial until documented in writing as an official response in the supplier portal. And then you can submit any additional questions that you have after today's meeting into the supplier portal, and we'll respond to all bidders via the supplier portal. So basically, if you have any questions after today that were not answered, you want to send those via the negotiation in the supplier portal, not to me directly in email, not to anyone from the City of Detroit. The purpose being that we publish every question that is asked. We also publish every answer from the department so that every supplier is on the same page. All right, so that's why we do things like that. Also, of course, no telephone calls. The project background is as follows. The City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement. If someone, I'm having a sound issue here, so I don't know if someone needs to mute. The City of Detroit, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, that's better.
Now stopped.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so the City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement, on behalf of the Department of Innovation and Technology, I said it incorrectly earlier, requests proposals from qualified respondents to render certain technical or professional services set forth in this RFP to provide information technology asset disposition services. This is the project timeline overview. This can be found on page 1 of the RFP. This bid was published on Thursday, February 27th. Your questions are going to be due next Tuesday, March 11th by 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, that's also through the supplier portal. I have to also state that you must check your supplier portal to make sure it is set for Eastern Standard Time. I believe that the default for the supplier portal is Universal Time, which is a difference. So you want to make sure, hopefully today, that you have your portal set for Eastern Standard Time, because if you miss that question deadline, I may not be able to respond to you. So you want to make sure you check that in advance. It's also, of course, very important for your proposal submission. Answers, we're going to shoot for distribution of answers by Monday, March 17th, which is St. Patty's Day. Proposals are going to be due Thursday, the 27th of March by 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also in the supplier portal, as I mentioned, check that time setting and I would encourage you to submit your proposal before the last minute. Try to submit it as early as possible. If you don't have a lot of experience submitting or using the supplier portal, I would hate for you to have problems and not be able to submit. I can assist you if you are submitting before the deadline, but if you are submitting after that deadline, I may not be able to assist you. So just try to do that as early as possible. The schedule for this project, it's pending City Council approval and issuance of PO. That's very good to know. The evaluation criteria, these can be found on page 7 of the RFP. So they are methodology and approach, and I've also listed the corresponding attachment that's included with the RFP documents that you're going to enter this information on. So their methodology and approach, qualifications and technical abilities, experience and references, staffing and resources, and then finally pricing. And these criteria are weighted at 20, 20, 10, 10, and 5 respectively, for a total of 65. Please note that your technical proposal will be evaluated before price proposals are received. So that's the final, and as you can see, the least weighty of the criteria that we consider. In addition to these criteria, we also do look at whether or not you or any subcontractors that you may use, that may not come into play so much in this particular RFP, but who knows? If you are certified by our Office of Civil Rights, Inclusion and Opportunity, also known as CREO, if you have certain certifications such as the Detroit headquartered business certification or the Detroit based business certification, you are allotted points for either of those. Just please note that if you do have both, you'll only get a maximum of 15 points. So we don't add these two together. You get a maximum of 15 points for this, for these particular criteria. If you're working with a subcontractor, you could be allotted up to 20 points based on their certifications. And you want to make sure, if you have any certifications, include those current copies of your certifications with your proposal before the deadline. And again, I stress current copies. I do have suppliers who sometimes send expired copies of certifications. If your certifications come to me expired, you do not get points for them. So it is up to you to make sure that all of your proposal submissions are current and accurate before the deadline. Next, required proposal content and format. These can be found on page 10. This is taken straight out of the RFP. It's just a copy. You want to include with your proposal a letter of transmittal, kind of introducing yourself and your firm, and also including a statement that your proposal is good for 120 days from the date of submission or the due date. Attachment A is the respondent questionnaire. Yes, listing your introduction and experience, capacity, and staffing. Attachment B is a staff roster. Attachment C, proposal introduction, methodology, and approach. That's where you're really going to give us the meat of your proposal. Attachment D, required forms, affidavits, and documents. Attachment E, the model professional services contract, is an example of the type of contract you will be signing with the City of Detroit. It's also important because it does contain the required insurance coverages that you would need to have in order to be awarded. And finally, attachment F is the price proposal. I've also listed the key response items, or all the attachments included with the RFP, on the last page of the RFP document. and they should all be able to be downloaded from Oracle. So this concludes my portion of this conference. Does anyone have any questions for me at this time?
I do. Does the company need to be Detroit-based or any other, the last requirement that you asked?
You do not have to be Detroit-based. You do not have to be Detroit-based.
Okay.
However, if you are Detroit-based and you have a certification, as I mentioned earlier, you want to include that with your proposal. But no, you do not have to be Detroit-based.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question as far as it relates to, you said, as long as we're not submitting last minute, that we could get assistance submitting. How do we go about requesting that? Via email?
Yes, you can. I'll put my email in the chat only for that. All right. If in terms of questions for the proposal, you guys cannot contact me. We also do have an e-procurement team. I'm going to put their information in the chat as well, because they specifically help suppliers with navigating the portal. So I will put both email addresses in the chat now. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to DoIT, and I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you, Jamila. So I will just give a brief overview of a little bit of what we're looking for in the RFP. So asset disposition contract, the city of Detroit currently, we're expecting to recycle, redistribute, or dispose of about 2,500 pounds of e-waste per month. That's laptops, desktops, tablets, cell phones. One key thing that we're adding this time around is scrap metal and data center equipment, also printers, peripherals, accessories. Probably the primary thing that we're looking for, obviously, is security and process around how the laptops and desktops are disposed of, how the hard drives are wiped, adherence to federal and state laws, and the process around that. If items are recycled, we want to know that the recycler is registered in the state of Michigan. I will kick it over to either Robert or I think we got Mike Sereno to talk a little bit about CGIS in a second here as well, because we do have some concerns about that. But that's the general overview. This is occurring at dozens of city locations. We try our best to organize these things in batches. There are 4 primary locations, however, so the majority of the work will be around City Hall, Public Safety Headquarters, and other buildings throughout the city. But most of it is coming through those 2 locations at least. Robert or Mike, would you like to talk a little bit about CGIS and maybe what you're hoping to see there?
Mike, why don't you go ahead and start to talk about CGIS?
Sure. So I'm not sure if everyone understands or knows about the criminal justice information systems and the requirements for disposal when it comes to digital media or equipment that houses that information. So the state and the FBI both lay out a CGIS guideline on how that equipment has to be sanitized before it's destroyed. So, for instance, when we have a hard drive that needs to get destroyed, we need a certificate that says that it was wiped or destroyed in accordance with their guidelines, whether it was crushed, shredded, degaussed, or however that is done. And there's a certificate process, and I can make sure that Jamila has that and she can distribute it. But that's basically when it comes to that. Now, the equipment itself for CGIS doesn't necessarily have to meet some type of, a computer itself doesn't have to be destroyed according to CGIS. It's the data portion of these technologies that need to meet that prerequisite. So I'll give her that information regarding the data portions of it. But when it comes to the equipment on the public safety side, it does fall in line with the rest of the city's process on recycling and regular disposal.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. The other point I wanted to add is there will be some, occasionally be equipment that is in a good condition and can be redistributed. We would be looking for profit sharing in those situations. We currently have that set up now, so we'd be looking to continue that practice moving forward. In terms of how we're evaluating proposals, really looking at the thoroughness of the information you're presenting, especially around data security and privacy. Talked a little bit about that earlier. I believe we did include, I think, 3 items on which you can submit potential prices, so we'll be using that as well. And then also knowing if you will have the capability of providing service to the account. So any references that you can provide where you're handling this amount of e-waste across different locations. Maybe you have business with a bigger customer. I think those are all good things that are a notch in the belt. So yeah, anybody else on the Detroit team have anything to add?
I think we covered everything that you mentioned, the certificate of destruction and erasure that we'll have to receive back.
No, please,
Okay.
yeah, please describe.
Yeah, so once we do release the equipment to you guys, of course, for Central City or non-public safety entities, we will be repurposing a lot of our devices. But for the devices that are the drives of the devices that are destroyed, we need to get back a certificate of erasure or a certificate of destruction, depending on what you do with that device. We'll also be looking at if you are going to resell that device or if that device is going to be considered e-waste. So, and I think if you guys could also let us know what certifications that you have, that would be great. If you have e-stewards or R2 certifications, we appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our impromptu presentation. Are there any questions? Yes, Gene, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Will this recording be made available for review?
Yes, it will. I'll get it published either today, later this afternoon, or tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So as far as the hardware that is able to be refurbished, you did mention that you guys are looking to do profit sharing. Is there possibility in the event of nonprofit donations? So would the profit sharing include donation letters if indeed the company would be able to donate? Or is that even an option?
I would say that's an option. Keeping in mind that we're the city of Detroit, so we'd probably be more interested in nonprofits that gave back to the city in some way. But yeah, definitely willing to look at that. Yep.
Okay.
Are there any other questions at this time? And just keep in mind, if you don't think of anything now, you can always submit it through the portal later, as long as it's by the 11th.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Is there an average number of laptops that have to be destroyed on a monthly basis? Do you have those numbers? Or is it just by the poundage?
I'll leave that to DoIT.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's on like a monthly basis. So what we have been doing in the past is once we especially after a refresh. You know, we will probably get more items during that particular refresh program than we would at any other point in time. So during a refresh, yeah, you'll probably see something on a monthly basis. Otherwise, you know, it might be 2 or 3 months. Once we get a Gaylord full of equipment, that's when we'll reach out to you. We'll send you a list of what we're going to provide you. And we hope that you reciprocate and give us a list of, hey, this is what we received. And then, you know, after you go through the disposition process, just let us know what you did with the tribes.
I have a question. For the pickup, are you guys looking for a pickup regarding to the items, or it would be a drop off?
Pick up.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we're just looking for somebody that's flexible to pick up from the various locations throughout the city of Detroit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess one more comment is that DPSH and City Hall on KMAC both have truck docks. Linden, one of the other facilities, does not have a truck dock available. So the pickup vehicle will need to be able to have a lift to be able to lift up the Gaylord via mechanical, regular manual means rather than, you know, backing into a dock. Just didn't want that to be a surprise.
Thank you for the information.
Yep.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I'll just invite anyone else who may have one last question or one or two. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Do you want us to drop our names in the chat so you can record who attended?
You can. Microsoft Teams actually does its own log. But yeah, if you'd like to, you can.
Okay.
That would be helpful. So your names and your organization. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that, please, or you can send it to me in email. But yeah, if you can drop your names and your organizations that you're representing. Thank you very much. And as I believe it was Michael mentioned, so there's going to be another document that's going to be published. So I'll be publishing an amendment with that additional document. If there are any changes or any updates to the RFP, you'll see amendments for those as well. And I think that that is all. Thank you to everyone who's entering their name. So I can stay on and wait. If you guys from Do It want to go, thank you for your time. Thank you also for attending today.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.